Hello, BookTube. This is Weekly Reads. My reading week has been busy and very, very fulfilling. I started my reading week finishing up Ducks Newburyport by Lucy Ellman. This is a weird mammoth of a novel. It is stream of consciousness to the max. It is about a unnamed narrator who, over the course of the novel, which spans several months, her thoughts just run rampant. Many of her thoughts are seemingly tangential, but they reveal much about her character. Also revealed is much about her history. What we can glean from her thoughts and ruminations and remembrances is that she is in early middle age. She comes from a family of academics. Her parents were academics. Her paternal grandfather was an academic. Her second husband is an academic. And she herself was an academic until relatively recently, when a cancer diagnosis forced her to leave teaching and battle her disease. Since she has been declared cancer-free, her career has changed to becoming a home baker. She bakes pies, cakes, and cinnamon rolls for assorted local restaurants and coffee shops and other stores, and also for parties and stuff. She has 4 children. Her eldest daughter is from a previous marriage, and she is part Native American. The other 3 children are from her current husband, and there are 2 boys with a second daughter between them. The narrator feels frustrated, a failure, and she despairs both of herself. She repeatedly calls herself broken. She despairs of the future of her family and the future of this country. She has never gotten over the death of her mother more than a decade before this story begins. Interspersed throughout the novel are more traditional narrative moments featuring a lioness who lives in the Ohio, Pennsylvania, West Virginia borderlands. The novel itself takes place in Newcomerstown, Ohio. And so with the lioness, it's largely what the lioness is doing, but eventually the narrative begins to form as the lioness looks for her missing cubs that have been, or kittens that have been taken by humans. And when I talked about this novel last week, I was wondering how exactly the lioness sections were going to merge with the main story, the ruminations of the narrator. And as the lioness searches for her children, her journey becomes local news, as well as the discovery of the kittens. And so this enters into the narrative of the narrator as she makes mention of the kittens and of the lioness. Over the course of the novel, things begin to come to a head, both within the family as well as externally, until a moment of potential violence imposes itself on her and her children, and that changes everything, at least somewhat. I really enjoyed this novel, and I am very surprised that I like it as much as I do. This is my third attempt at Dux Newburyport. I first attempted to read it back in 2020, shortly after it came out, and I didn't get on with it at all. And then I tried to read it again in, I think, 2023, and I got a little bit further in, but it still didn't hook me. But finally, in 2026, Dux Newburyport has most assuredly hooked me, and I really enjoyed it. Both the poetry of the narrator's thoughts and remembrances and ruminations, the fact that this is a State of the Nation novel, which was really interesting and thought-provoking. This was a fantastic read. I really enjoyed reading it. So after I finished Dux Newburyport on Tuesday morning, I then moved for Tuesday afternoon to reread She Heads into the Wilderness by Anne-Marie Macari. Anne-Marie Macari is one of my favorite poets, and this is probably my favorite collection of hers. This was the first collection of hers that I read. It is a brilliant collection that I always enjoy rereading, and it's composed of 3 parts. The first part is called Earth Elegy. The second part is an extended long poem, although the constituent parts of that poem could probably themselves be their own poems, that I really would love to read all of for one Poetry Thursday, but I don't think I can get away with 36 pages of a poem. So I might do some selections of that at some point. And then the third point wraps everything up. And it was a ton of fun to reread. And I'm really looking forward to Macari's forthcoming Amerigun, which should be releasing in the next 2 weeks. So on Wednesday, I read some manga for a palate cleanser. So in the morning, I read 3 volumes of Mao by Rumiko Takahashi, volumes 1, 2, and 3. So Mao is about a young girl named Nanako, who years before the series began was in an accident that claimed the lives of her parents. When the series begins, she finds herself crossing a temporal gateway from the Reira era to the Taisho era. So the Reira era is the current era of Japan, and the Taisho is Japan of a century ago, the early 20th century. In the Taisho era, Nanako meets a seemingly young man named Mao, who is an exorcist and doctor, specializing in exorcising and healing yokai. And he immediately realizes that something is strange about Nanako. And it is revealed that she, like him, has been touched and transformed by a cat demon named Byoki. And so in this first volume, well, no, that's not the first volume. This is the first volume. The features Nanako coming to grips with what's happening to her, and joining in on some of Mal's adventures. The second volume focuses on a cult that uses dark magic. Although the con artist that leads the cult does not know that he's actually using dark magic. And then in the third volume, Mao and Nanako tries to ameliorate the damage caused by the Great Kanto earthquake of 1923. And learning more about Mao's relationship to Byoki, and learning that some of his fellow disciples from centuries ago are still alive. So, I rather enjoyed these 3 volumes, although they are very, very reminiscent of Takahashi's most famous work, Inuyasha, which is about a contemporary schoolgirl traveling back in time where she meets a not-so-human young man that she eventually falls in love with. So there is that. But I did enjoy these 3. Not entirely sure if or when I would go add more volumes to my collection. And then over the course of the afternoon on Wednesday, I read 3 volumes of D.Gray-Man by Katsura Hoshino. Volumes 4, 5, and 6. So D.Gray-Man is set in an alternate Victorian era. Alan Walker is a member of the Black Order, a group of superhuman exorcists who are dedicated to destroying creatures called Akuma. The Akuma are controlled by an evil sorcerer called the Millennium Earl. And the Black Order's goal is to destroy the Akuma and finally defeat the Earl, while the Earl's goal is to destroy humanity. In the 4th volume, Alan meets 2 new allies, Lavi, the apprentice of the Bookman, and Bookman himself, who have joined the Black Order to help their goal of learning more about the secret history of the world. So this group, including Lena Lee, are sent to find Alan's mentor, General Cross, as the Millennium Earl and his allies, the Noah clan, are hunting down the generals. So this volume introduces Lavian Bookman and also another character called Aristar Crory, who is seemingly a vampire. And the villagers of where the castle is ask Alan and Livy to intervene. The 5th volume wraps up that storyline, as well as introduces a new member of the Noah clan, Tiki, who masquerades as a traveling bum. And then in the 6th volume, the Alan's group finally has a lead on General Cross, and Alan is confronted by Tiki at the end and has his butt kicked. So I wasn't as into these volumes as I had hoped I would be. it didn't really work as well. So, yesterday, Thursday, I read Hunchback by Saou Ichikawa, translated from the Japanese by Polly Barton. This is a weird short novel about a woman named Shaka who has a muscular disorder called, let's see if I can find it, congenital myopathy. Because I think Shaka has the same condition that Ichikawa has. And so she's in a group care home that her parents founded to help take care of her. And Shaka spent her time being a perennial student as well as a clickbait journalist and like a web author. She will occasionally post outrageous things to various Twitter feeds, and the one that she's most thinking about is that she would like to get pregnant and have an abortion so that she can experience what that would be like. And one day, one of her carers, Tanaka, mentions that he has read her work and knows of that desire. And what follows is a very indecent proposal, and all the consequences that entails. I am surprised that I like Hunchback as much as I did. It is a very moving, very restrained short novel or novella that really surprised me and really challenges what is real and what isn't. As the ending is very interesting and very ambiguous. Is this a story that Shaka is telling, or is Shaka herself the story being told? But it was really fascinating, and I really enjoyed reading it. So what will I be reading today and into the forthcoming reading week? So starting today, I'm going to be reading The Temple of Dawn by Yukio Mishima. This is the third volume in the Sea of Fertility tetralogy, which I have been reading over the course of 2026. This novel is translated by Saunders and Cecilia Segawa Seigle. So different translators from the first two novels, which I loved. So really looking forward to this. Once I finish The Temple of Dawn, I will begin The Spell by Alan Hollinghurst. This is his third novel, and the first novel of his that I ever read. I'm really looking forward to be reading it, because it has been quite a while since I fully reread the novel. I do periodically try to read all of Hollinghurst, and up until 2026, it has not gone well for me at all, but I'm hopeful that, I'm confident that I will reread it and love it. And then I'm unsure whether or not I will then move on to We Are Green and Trembling by Gabriela Cabezon Camara, translated from the Spanish by Robin Myers, or The Safekeep by Yael van der Wouden. So for these two, it depends on how much of the reading week I have. Because I'm not a huge fan of carrying things over into the next reading week. I would like to wrap up my reading by either Thursday or Friday so I can kind of wrap everything up at weekly reads and then start the next reading week fresh. That doesn't always work out for me, but that's how I like to try to get it done. So, yeah, I had a fantastic reading week this week. It was really fun and unexpected. I did not expect to love Ducks Newburyport or Hunchback as much as I did. So that's quite pleasing. So, outside of next weekly reads, my 2026 library tour will continue with this bookcase here, which will actually probably take into the following week as well. And I will try to do some more tag videos, maybe try to do some discussion videos if things work out. And I don't think there will be a book haul next week. There is a second Powell's order en route, but I don't know if I'm going to add anything to it. And I'm fairly sure that order won't come until probably the last week or so of March. But we shall see. I will report back. And I'm also expecting Amerigun by Anne-Marie Macari to come in as well, because I've pre-ordered that. So, anyway, BookTube, have a great rest of your Friday and have a great weekend, and I will see you back here on Monday. Until then, BookTube.